Welcome into the Off-Brand Avalanche podcast. This is our first official episode, so we're all pretty excited here. We're going to be talking some Western Conference NHL return to play bracket, so we're kind of just going to go through matchup by matchup, and we're going to pick our Western Conference winner in this episode. Next week on Monday, we're going to go over the Eastern Conference, so we'll give you our Eastern Conference winner, and then we'll also touch on that Stanley Cup final on Monday next week to give you our official off-brand pick for the Stanley Cup champion this year. But, it's our first episode, so you don't know who we are, but we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves here. I'm Billy, one of your hosts. I'm here with some of my buddies, Marshall, Zach, and Karim.
What's up, guys?
What up,
Hey,
guys?
boys.
So before we get into the bracket, I kind of want to touch on some of the other things going around the NHL. Not a ton of news, really, but a couple of minor things to touch on. The NHL is expected to announce the hub cities on June 22nd. At this point, it feels pretty obvious that Vegas is going to be one of them, but the other one
Easy.
is kind of
Up in the air a little
for
bit.
some speculation. I know, Marshall, you were talking, you think Canada seems pretty likely.
I just don't really see how they'd leave out a Canadian team. Either that or an Eastern Conference hub city like a Pittsburgh. I just feel like it would make it a lot easier for all the Eastern Conference teams. But it would also kind of feel unfair to Canada if they weren't able to host one of the city or be a host of one of the hub cities, So I just, and this is my personal speculation, my belief, much like, this announcement that's coming on June 22nd is only speculation, but some insiders were saying that there's definitely going to be an announcement on the 22nd. Like Billy was saying, I would fully expect Vegas to be one of the cities just because they have so much accommodation room. Like, you could pretty much have an NHL team per hotel and be perfectly fine with that. And they have, not only do they have the T-Mobile Arena, but then, they have MGM. There's not a hockey rink there, obviously. But
What city in Canada do you think they're going to go to?
Yeah, exactly.
so that is very interesting because I would
Toronto.
say,
Toronto.
I would definitely say Toronto, just because they're the biggest city in Canada, and I think they're the easternmost Canadian team that's in contention for hosting, being one of the hub
That's
cities. So it kind of is the best of both worlds in that aspect. It's like an eastern type city, and then also in Canada, and it's very close to the border, so there's not a whole lot of travel that teams would have to
Right.
end up doing.
And they
But
can
do we
definitely
know-
accommodate there, too.
Oh yeah, do we know anything about the Canadian and U.S. border?
Yeah,
there
I
any-
believe it is
So
still a
they should
2-week
be
quarantine.
fine.
But
Yeah,
they're talking about exceptions for athletes.
Okay, that'd be cool.
It's a little bit of a gray area, but
It is.
if it did turn into a problem, they wouldn't pick a Canadian city. I'll say
Exactly.
that. But it's tentatively looking like it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But so Vegas pretty much not going to say it's a foregone conclusion,
It's a
but it'll be
shoo-in.
quite a shock.
Yeah.
It'll be quite a shock if it's not Vegas. The other one still up for grabs a little bit, but the only other real piece of news is decision by the NHL that I personally am not a fan of at all. They're not letting any new contracts play in this playoffs. So,
Oh,
like,
interesting.
Cale Makar last year came out of the NCAA and straight into the NHL.
Oh,
that
okay.
can't happen this year. Anyone who is trying to sign a college free agent, trying to sign someone from Russia, trying to sign
So let's
any
say
of
we
the
wanted
prospects
Byram.
that did
We
not
couldn't
sign
take
their
him?
ELC before is out. What'd you say, Zach?
Let's say we wanted to pick up Byram. Let's say a defenseman got injured. And we couldn't
Byram's
get Byram.
okay. Byram
We
signed
could
his
take him.
ELC.
Oh,
Byram
he's on
signed
an
his
ELC. Okay.
before the season started, so he's good.
Okay.
But, like, college kids can't sign their ELC before the season starts because then you're not NCAA eligible.
Gotcha.
And Russians sometimes, like European kids, sometimes do, sometimes don't, depending on whether or not they're going to play in the AHL. So, really, for the Avalanche, the only player of note that wouldn't be eligible is Eustace Ananen, but we weren't bringing him in anyway. So
Right, that would be insane.
He would, if the AHL playoffs were still a thing, he would probably go in and try to help them. Another couple pieces of news, though. The NHL, we are in phase 2 right now. They're are skaters that are allowed to, skate in small groups. I saw a small group of Avs were on the ice together the other day. I think it was McKinnon, Landy, a couple other guys I can't necessarily think of. But then they did outline when Phase 3 is going to begin, which is the training camp, and that's on July 10th. Still haven't heard anything about Phase 4, which is, like the round robin and the play-in, games. But I would expect that to probably be in July, end of July, early June. Kind of following a little bit of it, early August. I feel like they're going to try to kind of keep pace with the NBA. The NHL was like the first big league out of the four to announce that they have finalized some sort of like return to play format, but then they haven't necessarily been keeping up with that. Like the NBA has already followed through with like where they're going to actually be playing their games, which is pretty interesting to me.
I would argue that the NHL might be a step ahead of the NBA at this point, just because the NBA has a few things they're still working on figuring out. Like they're doing it in Orlando, but they still haven't finalized their health and safety standards, which is not a great sign.
Yeah.
And
you got top players like Kyrie coming out
and
against it.
Yeah, they haven't. All the players didn't vote on it, so they're the NBA is kind of at
they're at a standstill right now.
Slightly ahead, but they're having some struggles that the NHL isn't.
Absolutely.
But yeah, definitely. The two leagues are very closely tied together with their schedule, so I would expect them to kind of be on that same track. When one starts playing, the other will probably start playing within a week on either end.
Well, I feel like the NBA is definitely behind on logistics, but at least they have, pretty set in stone dates on when they like to get stuff completed.
And location.
Yeah. And they came out and said that like mid-October, I think it was the 14th, that's like the very last day, I think it's October. Yeah, October, like 14th would be the very last like Game 7 NBA Finals game. So at least there's like some sort of timetable with how long this whole thing is going to last. And then also because with that puts into question on when the next season's going to start too. Christmas, January 1st. So kind of gives you an
really
idea.
our best guess at the NHL timeline right now is to really look at the NBA timeline because they've got some better dates for us.
Yeah.
But really that's all the news that's going on at the moment. Kind of a dead time for sports news at the moment. But we're going to go ahead and get into that bracket.
Yeah,
So
let's do it.
Let's start with our 5-12 matchup. We've got Edmonton and Chicago. And
well, really quick, so we're not going to really mess with the round robin series. We're just going like assuming that the Blues are 1, Avs are 2, Knights are 3, and Stars are 4. And then the NHL, right when they came out, everyone was assuming that it was going to be a bracket format, but it's actually going into reseeding after the first round. So that's something to keep an eye on, which is kind of interesting and makes these round robin games for the top 4 teams that much more important, in my opinion.
Definitely. Now, you'd much rather be the 1 seed when you know you're getting the lowest seed rather than, you could have been the 4 seed and ended up with Chicago, which would have been nice, but now it's not going to happen. So I like that format a lot better.
I do too. But yeah, anyways, let's get into that. We'll just each make our pick for the first series. So Edmonton is the 5 seed, Chicago is the 12th seed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start out. I definitely think Edmonton is going to win the series, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people expect. Chicago just has that playoff experience. I mean, they're only 5 years removed from their like mini dynasty or their dynasty, whatever you want to call it, and still have a lot of those same pieces together. Patrick Kane is still a game changer. Taves is not the player that he was, but they still do have some supporting like depth pieces that can kind of help them, move along.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I still think Edmonton, just their top end, is just too much for Chicago. Especially Chicago has a really poor defense.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think Chicago is they could have been a dark horse for me, but they didn't get the matchup. You know, if they had even if they had gotten Dallas, I would have seen that as a better matchup for them. You know, but
Yeah.
I don't think that they have the really, like you said, the defense to handle McDavid and Draisaitl. So, and I don't think they have the firepower to keep up either. So, this one for me is pretty easy. Edmonton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd pick Edmonton too. I just don't think Chicago has the defense or the goaltending to really match up with the top end talents that Edmonton has.
Absolutely. So we unanimous here, Karim. Is it Edmonton all the way?
I think it's Edmonton all the way, man. It's hard to stop
All
McDavid
right.
and Draisaitl.
Yeah. So we are getting Chicago out of there. First team out for us. Next up, we've got 6-11. So we've got the 6 seed in the West, the Predators, and the 11 seed Coyotes.
This is where it
This
gets
one's
interesting.
a little bit more interesting, yeah.
Yeah. The Coyotes could definitely, upset the Predators here. They have a strong lineup. Taylor Hall, he's a beast.
Yeah, I'm actually picking the Coyotes here as well. I'm not too sure about the status of Darcy Kemper, but before Kemper went down, he was a Vezina, front
Easy.
runner, and he was
right
seriously
behind
carrying
Hellebuck.
that team. Yeah,
Even right next to Hellebuck, really neck and neck.
yeah. And then they kind of imploded after that, and it's kind of interesting because they imploded a little bit after Taylor Hall got there too. But maybe that's just some sort of chemistry, not necessarily matching up. But they do have a bunch of talent on that
Oh,
team.
Phil Kessel.
Yeah,
Can't count him
Kessel,
out.
Clayton Keller. All
Oh, yeah, dude, they're loaded.
This
Yeah,
is a team that I see benefiting quite a bit from the fact that they're getting a training camp.
Oh, yeah.
So some of those new acquisitions of the Taylor Hall can
Get the
kinda
legs
really
going.
learn the system a little bit more too.
Yeah.
So the really they've got some veteran presence. They've got a chance to kind of get it together. I am taking the Coyotes here. I think that they can upset the Predators. The Predators just a team whose championship window is closed. They
Yeah.
were a cup contender a couple years ago, but they couldn't capitalize, and now really they might be able to sneak one more run in, but I don't see it this year.
No,
So,
I agree.
yeah.
To me, the
I
window
agree.
is closed.
Their
I think
off
on-
season.
Yeah.
Sorry, Karim, go ahead.
Nah, man, you go for it.
I was just saying their off-season acquisitions haven't necessarily played out very well with the Predators. A lot of stuff they've had a lot of problems with consistency this year. In terms of pure talent, I feel like the Predators still outweigh the Coyotes in my opinion, but I like the Coyotes in this matchup.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I think I never would have said this 2 or 3 years ago, but I honestly think the Coyotes win the goaltending battle in this one, which
Yeah.
to me is the difference maker.
Well, if Kemper is back. But then you also don't necessarily know how Kemper is going to be when he gets back because he hasn't played regular season games and he's just getting thrown right into the fire. So he hasn't played
True.
regular season games
Definitely
in a while.
wild card.
Yeah, but yeah, so I'm picking the Coyotes.
Yeah, I'm taking the Coyotes as well. Karim, what were you saying right before?
No, I mean, I'm kind of just preaching to the choir. I think Nashville's lineup looks really good, but I mean, Duchesne hasn't been playing like the player he used to be. No one really is reaching their potential over there. I think the window's closed, so I think you got to go Arizona, just a hungry team.
The Predators consistently make moves, trying to figure out their 1C position, but then
Just
Ryan
isn't working.
Johansson, he was supposed to come in and be their 1C. Kyle Turris was supposed to come in and be their 1C, and no one has figured out how to fill that spot for the Predators.
Yeah.
Duchesne's probably the closest they have been, but I mean they gave up some pieces to get him. So
exactly.
There's about 4 2Cs in Nashville right now,
Yeah.
and they just can't seem to get the guy to take the lead over there. All right, and Zach, who was your pick in this one?
Coyotes.
Okay, so we're unanimous again, which is surprising for the upset special here, but the Preds are done. Knocked out in the first round. That's a nice little 11 seed maybe for whoever ends up, for I guess the Blues, they're the 1 seed. But let's move on to the next one. We touched on the no new contracts. And this is the team, in my opinion, by far the most effective, most affected. The Minnesota Wild, who were planning on bringing in Kirill Kaprizov, now cannot. And he was, to me, the biggest X factor in this series, and now has just been completely taken out of it. Kaprizov, the Russian prospect drafted by Minnesota a couple years ago, really one of the 2 or 3 best prospects in hockey that wasn't already playing in the NHL. Could have been a game changer. Now it's looking like he won't be because he's not allowed to play. That decision, not final, technically still could be changed, but as of now, it's looking like no Kaprizov, and because of that, I'm taking the Canucks in this one.
For me, it's not even close in this series. I feel like the Wild outperformed what they had on their roster all season long, and that's still like as a 10 seed. So I just do not believe in the Wild. I thought they were going to be a bottom 5 team, and I still kind of believe without coaching they are a bottom five team just in pure talent. But I also just love the Canucks. This one is one of the easier series for me to predict. I mean, Pettersson is turning into an absolute superstar. And then another thing with that injury news, you don't know if Besser's going to be coming back. Markstrom's been playing like a Vezina-type goaltender all year. I think the Canucks run away with this series.
Yeah, this is a matchup where I see, a team that's up and coming in the Canucks with young players that are only going to get better, and a team that I don't know how, but they're still on the verge of a rebuild with the Wild. Like Marshall said, I thought they were going to be a bottom 5 team all year. Just didn't happen, but I do not think they stand a chance in this series.
Yeah, I'm not as high on the Canucks as you two are, but I am as low on the Wild. So this is pretty easy. I think that the Canucks move on. Karim, any thoughts on this matchup here?
I mean, Minnesota just always grinds out every game. They just play dirty, just get the job done. But I still think, Pettersson, Quinn Hughes. I mean, the Canucks are exciting. I'm excited for the Canucks to get past the Wild in this series.
The Canucks definitely a team to watch in future years. Like, in my opinion, I don't see them as a real contender this year, but one knocking on that doorstep could be a contender as soon as next year.
Pettersson's probably one of my favorite players to watch in the league, like right now. I mean,
definitely an exciting kid.
Super electrifying. All right,
got a lot of skill.
This one, I think, this next matchup, 8 Flames, 9 Jets, I think we might actually be a little bit split on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you start?
I'm not entirely sure who I'm going to pick yet.
I'm going Flames.
Okay, I have the Jets.
Okay.
I have the Jets.
I'm also going to go
with
Jets.
With Tkachuk and Gaudreau, I know the Jets have Hellebuck, and that's going to be really hard for the Flames to overcome. That is a lot. That is a lot. But I still think the Flames are probably the most grindy team that I can think of in the West, other than the Blues.
Yeah.
I just think they could do it.
Okay.
Johnny Hockey needs to show up if the
he's had an awful season, god awful,
and he had an awful playoff last year. So
yeah, that's true.
I don't know how that bodes for him.
I mean, the Jets still have Laine, Scheifele, Ehlers, Kyle Connor.
They're not short for talent at all.
No. Their defense is very shaky, but they do have probably the Vezina winner in net. I mean, between him and
Hellebuck is their defense.
Yeah, so.
He could steal the show.
And the Flames still have not figured out their goaltending.
Yeah.
And that was something that haunted them last year. So
yeah, definitely. I think this one's. You're right, Marshall. I think that the Jets are the winner here. A hot goalie in the playoffs cannot be understated how valuable that is. And if the Flames can't crack Hellebuck, it doesn't matter how good it is at the other end. But I don't know. I definitely think that the Jets get the advantage here. Zach, you went Flames. Marshall with Jets. Karim, where do you stand?
I'm going with your Winnipeg Jets.
Okay. So our first non-unanimous decision, but still pretty decidedly in favor of the Jets. What are your thoughts, Karim? Give us some of your reasoning here.
I don't know. I'm just not really big on the Flames. I mean, Giordano's a stud D-man. I just don't know.
Getting older, though.
Exactly. I mean, there's like Johnny G, who, like, if you compare the lineup on the offensive end for Winnipeg versus Calgary, you got to go Winnipeg there. I mean, the D is kind of shaky, but if Hellebuck can actually come in and play, and Johnny G has a bad game, or a bad series, I guess, I don't know. I'm really not high on Calgary.
I agree. I think that during the regular season, the Jets underperformed and the Flames overperformed, and they're 1 seed apart. So I'm going to give the edge to the team that underperformed and really could step it up with basically an off season to get it together.
I wouldn't necessarily say the Flames underperform or
I think
overperform, though.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. They
They
were
were
an 8
once-
seed. It's not like they were. It's not like they were competing in the top 5.
They were the 1 seed in the West last year, and then they dropped down to 8. So I would definitely say they underperformed.
Well,
Still,
they weren't one of the stronger 1 seeds in recent years. I would say they were.
No, but still, they were a 1 seed.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really any reason for regression, in my opinion. I mean,
Other
they still
than
had
just regression back to the mean, because I think they definitely overperformed last year.
They overperformed last year, I guess.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, if we're comparing last year to this year, they definitely underperformed. They didn't necessarily lose any of their top guys. Like Monahan's still there, Kachuk is still there, and a young guy. Gaudreau just underperformed. Goaltending was still an issue. Giordano did not have the year that he had last year. So
Yeah. Okay, I guess that's fair to say. I guess saying they underperformed is a little bit of a stretch, because they did finish as the 8 seed. But I think they're more in line. I think this year's Flames is more in line with what they are as a team. But that's it for our first round. So moving on to the second round to face the top 4 is going to be Edmonton, Arizona, Vancouver, and Winnipeg. So based on seeding, the Blues will get the Coyotes, the Avs will get the Jets. Interesting one there. The Knights will get the Canucks. And the Stars will get Edmonton. Right off the bat, I don't love that matchup for the Avs, but we'll talk about that a little bit after. Let's go by seed. So let's go Blues Coyotes first here. And Coyotes moved on in the first one, but I don't think they can take the Blues.
No
I think
way.
they get smoked here. Maybe not smoked. I don't know. Are we doing 7-game series? Probably. So I think they'll probably
7,
go.
So the first one is 5, but it's 7 once you get into the first one.
Okay. I feel like this could go 6, but the Blues would be dominant the whole time, pretty much.
Yeah.
I think this goes 4 or 5.
Oh, really? You think they can get swept? I don't know about that.
I say 5 or 6. I think I think the Coyotes can edge one out here, but
Easily. I think the Coyotes at
maybe
least
2,
get 1.
But they're not winning 4.
No.
I don't see that happening.
The Blues is just too deep, and I mean they're the defending Stanley Cup champions. I don't see.
Defending Stanley Cup champions
Coyotes.
and the 1 seed.
Yeah.
You know, when you get into 1-11, this is kind of what happens. I think we're all. I don't know if there's much really left to talk about on this one. There's not much to say. It's a much better team playing a team that's not in their league.
Yep.
So let's touch on the next one then. This is the Avs Jets, which
Brutal
I
matchup.
don't like this matchup for the Avs.
We got
I'm
the
still taking
firepower
it.
to overcome, though. And when I say we, I mean the Avalanche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is an Avs pod, so it's not
Oh,
necessarily.
yeah, that's right.
But I actually don't hate this matchup for the Avs, to be honest. The Avs just have so much offensive firepower, and the Jets have no defense. All they do have Hellebuck, but I just don't see how like you can sustain just an offensive firepower without any defense. I mean, Hellebuck's just going to get laid out to dry.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hellebuck
only
could overcome Gaudreau and Sean Monahan, but when you throw McKinnon and Rantanen and Landeskog and Burakovsky at him, I think you need a defense in front of you if you want to stop that.
And Cale Makar.
Yeah, Kale
He's pretty much a fourth forward at all times.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. That's kid's got some offensive firepower.
Yeah.
The Jets, though, I will say, scare me more than Vancouver would have. I would have liked to
Yeah.
have Vancouver in this round, but
I'd actually disagree just because
really,
the Canucks have a more solid defense than the Jets, not as much offensive firepower, but they still have that Markstrom X factor too. Markstrom can easily steal a series just as much as Hellebuck could.
he could. I don't know. I'd put Hellebuck a tier above him, and then I'm just not I'm not sold on Vancouver being in a they all their best players are players who are budding stars, but I wouldn't call superstars. Elias Pettersson, he'll be a superstar, I believe, but I don't think that he is right now.
I think he is, but that's for another topic, another day.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've kind of made it pretty clear we're picking the Avs. Let's talk about Vancouver and Vegas.
Oh, this is a good series.
Although I
Like
do
the
like
series.
Vancouver, I definitely have to go with the Knights. The Knights were my preseason pick to win the Stanley Cup. They have so much depth. They have two goaltenders that have proven. Well, I mean, Fleury hasn't necessarily had the right or a year based off his standards, but he has been a part of 3 Stanley Cup winning teams, going to a 4th with the Knights just a couple years ago. But then they did bring in Robin Leonard too. So if Fleury starts, if he does get the net in the playoffs and he starts faltering, they can just turn it right over to Robin Leonard. So, but then they also just have so much forward depth. They have pretty much 2 1B lines, in my opinion, with Stone, Pacioretty, Stastny, and then Carlson, Riley, and so.
Yeah, and they don't have that the 3-headed monster like the Avs do. They don't have that truly best of the best in the entire league kind of line, but they're both of their first lines is what we're going to call them are very, very good and can skate with anyone. 3-headed monster is better than the line they roll out first, but their second line is far better than anyone else's second line, really, that I can see.
Yeah. Knights for sure. I mean, this is pretty much the same team that they took to the Stanley Cup their first year. And then not only that, but they did improve their roster too.
Yeah, plus Mark Stone.
With Stastny, Stone, Pacioretty, so
yeah.
I think the Knights are a very solid contender for the Stanley Cup this year, and I'm knocking out the Canucks.
I'm also taking Knights here. Zach, who you taking here?
Knights.
All right, and Karim, who are you taking here?
Knights, man.
Unanimous decision, and the Canucks are out. So the top 5 seeds are left, but which of the 4-5 goes on? Dallas or Edmonton? And this is interesting to me.
Yeah. I think Edmonton
take
could come in. Yeah, Edmonton could win that.
Yeah, I think
Stars.
You're taking the Stars? Okay, I think that Draisaitl and McDavid, it's the best 1-2 punch in hockey right now. Edmonton became a different team when they switched it up. They were running them on the same line, and while that's a lot of talent to have out there at once, when they split them up and did McDavid then Draisaitl and hit you back to back, they really stepped it up and became a much better team. And I think that team is one that the Stars are not going to be able to hang with. I think that Edmonton wins this one in 5 or 6.
I would highly disagree. The Edmonton has no depth. I mean, Kyler Yamamoto, still just a rookie, or just still a young guy that only played I think 30 games or something. I just do not see a lot of depth on Edmonton. They still have a lot of young players on defense with Darnell Nurse. Although he's not super young anymore, but then Ethan Bear really broke out this year, and definitely still not confident in their goaltending. With the Stars, I am confident in the goaltending. You saw what Ben Bishop did in last year's playoffs, almost taking them to the Western Conference Finals. Or was that the first round? I can't remember right now. But,
No, it was the conference finals. It was
okay.
Sharks, Stars.
Yeah, okay. but either way, the Stars still have a lot of forward depth with Sagan, Ben. They brought in Pavelski and Corey Perry, although Perry's kind of fallen off hard. But then their defense is still very solid as well with, Heiskanen and
Klingberg.
Yeah, Klingberg, Anton Lundell. So I'm taking the Stars here.
I'm going to have to disagree on your take of Edmonton's depth. I know early in the season that was definitely true. They didn't have the depth, but, you mentioned Kyler Yamamoto, only 30 games, right around a point per game in those 30 games. They also made a pretty substantial deadline move, bringing in Andreas Athanasiou. They've still got Nugent Hopkins on the roster. Right there, you're looking at really 5 very high-quality top 6 players. Maybe you don't have the bottom 6 to match up, but they've got elite primary scoring and then very good secondary scoring. I will agree Dallas may be a little bit deeper, but I think Edmonton's depth may be a little underrated. Definitely better at goaltending, but any goalie can get hot in the playoffs. So definitely giving the edge to Dallas, but I wouldn't count out Edmonton either.
So you're giving the edge to Dallas?
No, in goaltending. Sorry, specifically. I wouldn't I'm not going to say it wouldn't be impossible for Edmonton to get better goaltending than they have all year in the playoffs. Anyone can step it up at any time. Definitely the edge to Dallas there. Ben Bishop, one of the best goalies in the league. And you have to love him because he's Colorado born and raised. So
Wait, so who are you picking?
Edmonton.
Oh, okay.
But Dallas has better goalies. Sorry. Yeah, I kind of got a little confusing there. But yeah, I'm taking Edmonton. Marshall's taking Dallas. Zach, who did you take?
I took Edmonton.
Okay, and then Karim. Who are you taking here?
I think if you asked me a month ago, I would have gone Edmonton, but I think I got to go Dallas.
Okay.
Ooh.
So, we didn't talk about this before we started, but the way we are settling ties is with a coin flip. So, this is the most important coin flip of the year for these two teams, basically. We're going to give heads to Edmonton, tails to Dallas. And I dropped the coin, of course. But it is tails. So Dallas will advance.
Hell yeah.
Bullshit.
Let's see. So Edmonton is out. So that play-in was super important because no one made it. The 1, 2, 3, 4 are the remaining teams.
All right. Well,
so the Blues will get the Stars and the Avs will get the Knights. Let's start with the Blues and the Stars. That last one was close, clearly, because we split on it. But this one, to me, I'm taking the Blues.
Yeah, I gotta go Blues too. Both these teams are super grind heavy though. So
this will be
the least fun
brutal.
Series to watch.
So when the Avs beat the Knights, it's gonna be good for us to play them. Oh,
yeah. I'm picking the Blues here. I do feel like they're a little bit, or they're constructed a little bit similarly, but I think the Blues have more depth. And then also, I don't know, another thing is Tarasenko coming back?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
He sounds like he will be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not for sure, but presumably he will be playing. And I think, that does give them another edge. Really, the closest thing they have to a superstar winger is Tarasenko. But
yeah, exactly.
So, definitely an X factor. If he doesn't come back, I still think the Blues have an edge just because the two, they play similar style. They both like to grind it out, and I think the Blues grind it out better. So,
yeah,
makes them the easy call for me. Karim, you said Blues as well, so we were unanimous on that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the Stars are out. Not too much to deliberate there. This is a good one. The Avs Knights. I want this series to happen because this might be one of the most fun series to watch.
Oh yeah,
this series
Avs
is
memory.
going 7.
Oh,
I agree. I'm taking the Avs in 7. I think the end of the day, I like the star power on the Avs to kind of carry us. Playoff McKinnon is like a next level hockey player.
Yeah,
I don't know. Playoff McKinnon is different than regular season McKinnon. I might take playoff McKinnon over Connor McDavid.
I mean, so far he's proven that. He's definitely proven that. So, I mean, even going back to his junior days with the more Men Cup and all that stuff. I mean, he absolutely
he dangled
it up, so.
Seth Jones.
Oh yeah,
that was savage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, McKinnon is the superstar X factor. He takes, in my opinion, he puts us over the Knights. But really, two very good teams. Like, if you're an Avs fan, you don't want this to happen because it's going to be a really close series, but you want it to happen because it's going to be so fun to watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I pick Avs there.
Picking Avs, although it would not surprise me at all if the Knights advance here.
Definitely. So, in our bracket, the Western Conference Final now becomes the Blues and the Avs, the 1 and the 2 seeds. So, really, we did not do anything interesting.
I do think this is a realistic matchup, though.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason they're the 1 and 2 seed, and that's because they're the two best teams in the West, clearly,
easily,
in our opinion. So, I'm taking the Avs in this. Honestly, I think that even had you let the regular season play out, I think the Avs would have taken over the Blues for the 1 seed. The other thing is, both these teams have had injuries, but the Avs injuries have been worse all year. They've been struggling with it, and we're still neck and neck with the Blues.
Yeah.
I think the Avs are the better team, and I think it's definitely close. There's the Blues. You don't win a conference unless you're good, but
yeah,
the Avs have got a lot going for them.
Well, I mean, this whole break the Avs probably benefited the most out of any team in the West from this break, just getting everyone healthy. I mean, McKinnon went down right as soon as the league got postponed. I mean, Ranton has been dealing with injuries. Landy's been dealing with injuries. Kale McCarr was dealing with injuries. I mean, Kadri, Burakovsky, everyone. So, I mean, that's 6 or 7 of our top forwards were out at some point. So, if we can just get back and get in some sort of game shape and play like we were at the beginning of the year before Rantanen went down, I mean, look out for the Avs.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of the beginning of the year, the Avalanche coming off an off season, 3 straight years, the Avalanche have come right out of the gates white hot to start the season. Yeah. So now they're going into the playoffs with an off season, a team that historically plays very well in the beginning of the year. I think that's a good sign for them.
Yeah. The goaltending is going to be interesting in this one. I mean, Bennington has proven that he's an elite goaltender. But I do feel like the Avs have a really solid 1-2 punch that either way can give them a chance to win any series.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
As long as they can get one goalie going.
Yeah, I would take our second goaltender, whether it's Grubauer or Francouz, over Jake Allen.
I agree. Yeah, definitely. So we are sending the Avs to the Cup final, it looks like, which is good for Avs fans. You know, maybe a little bit predictable on an Avs podcast. We have to kind of acknowledge we might be a little bit biased here, but the Avs do have the best odds in the West as the Stanley Cup, the best odds to win the Stanley Cup in the West. So it's not like we're making some bold prediction picking our team here. Yep. Definitely a realistic possibility, which is exciting for Avs fans who haven't gotten to see the Avs really be a contender in a decade now.
Yep. Perfect.
So, yeah.
Nothing really else.
So next week we're going to touch on our... Oh, go ahead, Marshall.
Oh, nothing. I was just saying there's not too much else you could say. I mean, we are an Avs podcast, but I feel like most of the league would agree that the Avs would maybe at least move on. Like, it would be between the Blues and the Avs, but for reasons that we had mentioned, the Avs move on.
Absolutely. So, that's our Western Conference predictions, so you can kind of see we didn't really pick too many upsets, which surprised me a little bit. I thought we might have a couple more, but it's not really how it played out. But we're sending the Avs to take on the Eastern Conference Final winner, which we will find out next Monday. So stay tuned so you can see how the Avs fare in the off-brand Stanley Cup Final. If you're listening to this on YouTube, keep in mind that we also are available on iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. If you're listening to one on those, check us out on YouTube. The YouTube channel will have some more Avs kind of style content other than just the pod. But all kinds of great stuff. We also have a sports pod and a top 10s pod, so check out the rest of the Off Brand Network. And we'll see you guys in our next episode.